Thank you, everyone. We're now jumping into, I would consider, one of the most important, which is blockchain for good. And one of the common threads, like no matter when you're starting or where you are in your ICO, is why we do this. Why are we all here? And what is the whole purpose of blockchain as a whole? And what is it that we're all trying to do? And I would say that one common thread is that we're really trying to change the world that we live in, and we're doing it like in a very concerted way. And each of these panelists today have been selected because of the different niches that they've selected to do good on the blockchain. And I'm sure we could have more of you in the audience here as well. But I wanted to highlight some of their stories and let them start by telling you why they got involved in blockchain for good. And if they would introduce themselves, that would be great.
Can you hear me? Is it on?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can? Okay. Hi, Jackie Hart. I'm from Chain Reaction Labs, co-founder. And my background was in tech for over 20 years in Silicon Valley and in New York, both coasts. And it was wonderful, great. I loved it. And it got really tiring and hard and competitive and corporate, and went into nonprofit and decided just a couple years ago that fintech and the world that we are really disrupting and changing felt like a really good choice, because there are a lot of really amazing projects that are being done on blockchain, and that is what brought me into this again. So I run a marketing agency with Mark Strouch, and we are just right now, our one big project right now is ShelterCoin, which I'll talk about in a little bit, but is this just introductions, right?
Absolutely.
So my story is I'm here to serve on a higher ground for Mother Earth and for humanity. So I'll tell you more about that later.
Fantastic. Michelle?
Hi. Hi, I'm Michelle. I was a PayPal attorney for 6 years, until 2012. And then 2015, I co-founded a payments blockchain company. At that time, nobody knew what blockchain is. I also founded a company myself, a startup. And then I started working on last year on helping consciousness. It's called a Loving AI project. It's part of the X Prize. So we make loving robots to help humans become more loving. I also work on the Robots Without Borders project. We make digital robots to help people from all over the world with education, humanitarian aid, and medical information. So hopefully pretty soon you'll have, and it'll be on the blockchain. So pretty soon, people can use it to read and learn. I'm also an ICO advisor for a couple ICO companies, and a laptop radio host on Laptop Radio and Hashes and Block, which I wanted to create to give free information to the world.
Thank you, Michelle. Tom?
Yeah, my name is Tom Meredith. Is this mic on? Everyone hear me? My name is Tom Meredith, and I'm founder and CEO of a company called BitMinutes. Can't hear? Hi, that's better. Yeah. Name's Tom Meredith, and founder and CEO of BitMinutes, and we've spent the last 4 years building out a prepaid phone token. There's 4 billion people around the world that use prepaid time to pay for their cell phone and for their data plans. It's not like here where you walk into an Apple store and walk out with a $1,000 device and with the promise to pay every month. No, you prepay your phone time. So what's happened is a lot of this money is tied up in these 4 billion prepaid phones, and what we've done is we've taken that prepaid phone asset and we will lend against that asset if you use our prepaid minutes, BitMinutes, so on a 2-to-1 ratio. So if our motto is Mom in Mumbai or Mom in Mozambique or Mom in wherever, we're targeting women because they tend to make better credit risk than men, that anyone who walks into a store and puts down $5 of BitMinutes, they'll walk out with $10 of cash. So we're trying to create a global access to capital at a very, very low level to start people's credit history. And also BitMinutes can be used on 4 billion to send money or prepaid minutes to these 4 billion phones. So it's like a global Venmo. So free money transfer on a global basis. And we'll be talking more about this a little bit and see how we can help out.
Hi, everyone. My name is Samantha Stein. I'm the Director of Special Projects and the Startup Battlefield Editor for TechCrunch. I'm also the curator for the San Francisco chapter of the Global Shapers for the World Economic Forum. So my role at TechCrunch focuses on identifying early-stage tech all over the world. So that extends beyond blockchain, but as you've seen, if you follow our coverage of Battlefield, we've been increasingly covering very interesting emerging iterations that you see of blockchain technology. So things like Ketit, which works with zero-knowledge proof blockchains, things like the Sun Exchange, which takes solar ownership down to a single cell. And we'll be talking more about these different innovations later on the panel, but very pleased to be here with you all today.
Awesome. Lori?
So I just wanted to say thanks to Anu for gathering us here today. She did a lot of work to pull us here together, and also at dinner later. So I'm Lori Corpus. I'm from LA, based in New York City, and also a global shaper here with Samantha, but from the New York City chapter. And right now I'm building a project, Fourth Block, that kind of builds on the experience that I have as an engineer and kind of in financial tech, but evolving that into really just bridging communities from my experience organizing TEDx communities, as well as the communities in the Global Shaper hubs around the world, as well as having this high conviction on blockchain and this framework for the future that the forum really has kind of propelled as the fourth industrial revolution. So this project is really just focused on curating and then connecting these communities of innovation, execution, and kind of high conviction on blockchain in several cities. So we're doing dinners globally, and then also we'll be organizing a conference later on, more intimate, a little bit smaller than this. So that's me.
Fantastic. So I met Lori last week on a train. We were at another blockchain event, and when she was telling me about her background, I noticed that I met her at the World Economic Forum just a few weeks ago. And one of the themes that I've been mulling over for the past few weeks is this opportunity for us to engage millennials and a more diverse group of individuals who can actually invest into this new financial economy that we're creating. And so one of the topics, when we talk about blockchain for good, is good for who, good for what, and what is good. So I want the panelists now to comment a little bit about their feelings, their perceptions. How are they actually engaging millennials and all these groups that have been marginalized until now? What are we doing, and how are we actually engaging them? And it'd be good to know how we can start to form these synergies, and you'll start to see it happening already on the panel. So I'm going to start. I think I want to start on this end and then bounce over this way. So Lori, why don't you start? Tell me.
Yeah. So what I've noticed, so I've always been kind of a minority in any industry that I've been in. I'm an engineer. I was in tech, also in finance, and so. Women in those industries have always been kind of a minority group. And so what I'm seeing within the blockchain space is because of this access to technology and engagement all around the world that we're also seeing technologies that are bridging communities of women who are empowering each other, such as the crypto queens that Anu has built, as well as other threads that are coming along. So I'm heavily active on these, and I'm posting ways to engage other women. But in addition to that, when I host events, we have our goal of having 50% women. So this past Sunday, we had a San Francisco dinner in the Mission, and we had roughly 62 attendees. And I'm super proud to say that we had roughly
That's amazing.
45% women. So that's pretty good. And yeah, I think it's more of the industry. The industry is growing their engagement of women in this, and it's being heard.
Absolutely.
Great. So I think there's a lot of interesting ways you could answer this question, right? So one of them is looking at if we're going to be more inclusive of underrepresented founders or millennials or whatever it is you're selecting in this space, how will that happen? So there's the cultural side of communities that evolve, but there's also the tech itself and the practice and interacting with the tech, the human, computer interaction component, all these different things that play out in how this space will be for underrepresented founders, for minorities, for all sorts of different folks. I think right now we're still very, very early. I think some of the things we can think about is, are we going to have a culture in which if you're raising with an ICO and a white paper, that you actually can help eliminate bias because you're just going to be raising on the merit of deep tech and an idea and its technical feasibility?
That's a great point.
Or are we going to have a culture where instead, we have a ton of marketing around these ICOs and it's all about like, what does it look like? What are the optics? And it draws away from the tech. And if that becomes our culture, it's going to be back to having faces on it. And once again, we're putting, more room for bias back into the mix. I'm lucky because my name is Sam, so I can also send emails to people and they don't know unless they Google me, like, are they talking to a man or a woman? And at times that's been very advantageous for me, and I could see this playing out in fundraising as well.
I say Anu is a boy's name too, so I don't know. Jackie?
Hi. Okay, so for me, the tech is sexy. It's awesome. It's great. It's wonderful. It works, sort of. But for me, blockchain for good is, it's funny, David Plattner, who's sitting in the audience, asked me, blockchain for good, what do you mean? Like, what is that for? Is that an actual blockchain for good? Is that a real actual technology? I said, for doing projects and for, working with organizations that are doing good things in the world, like, helping humanity, helping, like, natural disasters, helping, starving children. I mean, things like that, but it's not that as well. It's that, but it's also more. It's this room right now, and I'm not to get all kind of woo-woo on you, but it's what we're doing. We're all connecting and collaborating more. Who can sit there and raise their hand right now and say that you have seen a complete energetic rise in collaborations? Like people coming up and you networking more than you've ever seen. Has that happened to anyone here? To me, it's
WhatsApp
happened.
is exploding, to be honest.
It's not just even that. It's just even, to me, in person, like even seeing this in the conference, I've seen so many connections happening with people. And so to me, the technology is about the people. And that's what blockchain is. And so for me, it's the people, and it's about us connecting more intimately together. And that's as well with the projects that we're doing, the blockchain. So blockchain is good with intimacy and connection, which brings us closer together, which collaborates, because that's what we need to do as humanity. We need to collaborate more together. And so that's one of the things that it means to me.
Amen, sister. Robotics for good. Comment, please.
So for me, I think for good means just lifting the world, helping it with raising its vibration, right? So I'm the one who wrote the 200 thought leaders, and I purposely did that. I don't want it to call it woman because I think men and women should be equal, like centuries ago, not today. And I think we have a lot of work to do. I was an attorney at PayPal. We have, a lot of women as lawyers. We have like about one lawyer guy. We ran the company, we grew it, and it spinned off of eBay. So when I go to these conferences and I see no woman on panel, you know what it tells me? We're not there yet. And what is decentralization, guys? Do you see all the graphics on blockchain is about collecting dots, right? Those dots are not all men. They have to be all women, like they have to be men, they have to be women, AI, and probably people from other planets, right? So, we need to be inclusive and we needed to do it today. So that's why I wrote that. And I had a whole discussion about women in conferences this morning as well, with that Miami conference and the strip clubs. As a woman, do I want to go to a conference and see naked women dancing? Do I want to see that and pay almost 1 Ethereum to do that? Probably not, right? So some of the responses are really interesting. And I think it's really time to really look at ourselves and our humanity and really think about how do we want to change that? And how do we unite? And what does that mean, right? So you have all these little lines collecting, right? That's what the blockchain is about. How are we growing closer globally, right? Because ICOs are global, and this is global. So it's just really some of the stuff that I think we should be thinking about.
So basically, with our initiative for women investing in women digital, we have about 1 million followers now on Facebook, and we've created podcasts on the State of Women Radio Network and TV network, and we've integrated content. And now we're trying to encourage more young women and girls to participate by showing them role models. But broader, when we had this conversation about what did happen in Miami, the thought was, this is not everyone, and these are not all the organizers. And there was a conscious effort in Switzerland during Crypto HQ to get more women on each of the panels, and there was a Women in Blockchain panel, which I moderated. And immediately after the conference ended, I happened to run into Mike Kostash, who's right there standing by the door. And he's like, this was one of our objectives too, and we want to see this going forward in 2018 and get more women to participate. How are we going to do this? What can you do? How do we bring our communities together? And Mike and I have been talking. You said 50%. We're getting there. We're getting there, Mike. A step at a time, dude. So anyway, it's like we started in Cayman Islands 2 weeks ago, and I flew down there to just get the lay of the land. And I said, in San Francisco, we will actively bring more women, and we're here today. And I told Tom he's our token. We've got 4 queens and a token, so it's like, we're trying to change the game one step at a time. And this evening, we're actually hosting a Crypto Queens event with Siglo Sushi. They're doing a sushi dinner, and they said, we were disgusted by what happened in Miami. We're here to serve you, and we're going to cook for you, so bring the Crypto Queens. And so they're actually co-hosting a party, and we're going to show the world, not just Silicon Valley, but the world, this is how you do it. If you want to engage women, you invite them. You invite them properly and engage them, and they will come, and guess what? Your audience is going to get even bigger. So their dinner is now triple oversubscribed as a result. And it's just by them, I think, doing good and doing well. And yeah, people are going to hear about who they are by default because they're doing the right thing. So that's just an example of blockchain for good in my mind. It's just you step up and you do the right thing, and guess what? People are going to notice, and people are going to stay connected, and people are going to buy your tokens and buy whatever you have to sell because you're doing the right thing. Tom, tell us about what you're doing for good. I know it's going to work.
Well, thank you, Anu. We've been working on this for some time, and we've done a lot of research in the microfinance space. And again, what we find over and over and over again, it's the women who are the ones who are the responsible ones when they do make loans, take out loans of, let's say, $200, $300, $400 that these microfinance companies have been putting out for many years. The problem they've had, though, it's been a very, very labor-intensive process. Somebody goes out to a remote village in India. They spend days talking about capitalism, what a loan is, what an interest rate is, and then they get, typically, again, a room full of women, 20 of them, to, in essence, co-sign the note and say, I'm going to support whoever is borrowing this $200. Well, that's a weak process, and it's a great educational thing, but it's hard to put millions and millions and millions of dollars to work if you're doing it $200 at a time and it takes an entire week. So the beauty of what blockchain has done, it's enabled us to automate this process and to say to anybody who has a cell phone and has enough money to buy $5, $10 worth of prepaid minutes, which 4 billion people do. So we know this money, the average is $10 tied up with 4+ billion people. That's $40 billion that's just sitting there not being used. Now the phone companies like this, but we're saying, look, if you buy a BitMinute, we will lend against that. And we really do want to go after women because, again, that's demographically, and all the statistics say they're the responsible ones. So I don't know if this is being sexist or not. I don't know what I can say anymore as a guy. So I just try to say, I stick with facts and stats that, in fact, Anu and I, we've spoken about how to have women spearhead this effort because, we're just a bunch of engineers. So the whole idea here is to find a way to reach out to women specifically and get them to recruit other women to make this offer of $5, $10, $20, where we can do this, A, cost effectively, and B, start to establish a credit history because all this is on blockchain. So if this isn't blockchain for good, I don't know what is, because we're trying to reach out to everybody, but we think women are going to be the major beneficiaries. So I'm very proud and glad to, again, be your
And that
token
tech is
guy here.
sexy. That tech is really hot.
Yeah,
So
there you
it's
go.
like, we endorse it. It's awesome.
Yeah, go ahead.
You brought up a point of Anu about role models and about the millennials, and we've got two amazing smarty pants and millennials at the end of this panel that I just adore and have had time to speak to about what they're doing, and they're only just touching upon it just a little bit here. But I think there's another really important aspect to mention with the blockchain is that how there is so much, bridging both generations that's happening as well, because there are so many millennials that are just standing up and rising up and going, yeah. And there's 16, 17 CEOs that are 21 I met today. That's just fantastic. So it's another aspect of being in the good department that we are able to help these younger generations. So it's up to us wisdom keepers, I don't know what you want to call us, older people, but wisdom keepers that are actually paving the way and staying beside them. And so thank you. Thank you both for the work that you're doing.
So look, we've got 5 minutes left, and I think I want to ask one more question, and then if we have any time left, we'll open it up to questions in the audience, because I really like the flow of how this is going. What do you see as the greatest opportunity for good through blockchain? Lori, start with you.
Wow. That is a tall order. Okay, I can relate that to what I'm doing with Fourth Block. So really what's great about blockchain is it's introducing this new concept of, a value really around community. And if you think about how blockchain works as a technology, and also how it increases its value, whether it's a currency or whether it's a network, it's really this idea of collaborating with others, as well as just building community around things like that. So I would say that can you repeat the exact
Greatest
question again?
opportunity for blockchain.
Greatest opportunity. Yeah, the greatest opportunity is to bring us together as a species under collaborative efforts in a means to build community, because that's really what is growing the value of each of these blockchain technologies, these blockchain projects.
Awesome. Samantha.
So once again, it's still early, and so I think that means right now the greatest opportunity is to recognize that we can either replicate the existing systems that we have in terms of social inequality, in terms of lack of inclusion in segments of a particular workforce, in terms of income inequality, in how money is distributed in a crypto economy, or all of us in this room can say, okay, with the particular project I'm working on or how I'm building, designing these systems, what is the small amount of impact I can have? And if I look at everyone else in this room together, what will that change if we came in this room today and we decided, hey, we're all gonna commit that we're gonna actually think about designing systems that are more inclusive and doing that in the way that's most meaningful for where we're touching blockchain in the greater community or ecosystem. So I think because it's early, there's a lot of opportunity to design for good. Maybe in ways in which it's harder to go back in systems we've designed elsewhere and say like, okay, now all of a sudden we want our workforce and tech to switch from X percentage of women to this percentage. It's hard to just flip that in a day. There's a lot of pipeline development that has to happen. But it's early, so anyone can start to really learn this space and educate themselves and get involved. So I think that's very encouraging. On a concrete level, I think there's some very exciting things going on, right? So if we talk about, what are some of the social good applications already? We're seeing something as simple as financial inclusion and being able to say, for certain where assets are going, how they're being distributed, things like land titling, right? That's a great source of social inequality and disempowerment, especially in developing countries. So I was in Africa launching TechCrunch Africa earlier this year, and people have to put signs in Kenya all over their properties saying not for sale, because people will sell other people's property, and there's a huge problem with fraud and land titles. And so this is a very important way that we can apply blockchain, right? So
Absolutely. Tom?
Well, we're voting with our feet, of course. So, we've been at this for some time. And the title search, we're active in Kenya. We're directly integrated with M-Pesa and a number of banks in the area. But again, we just think that the opportunity for financial inclusion for the unbanked is really where our focus is. It's And it's taken us a long time to figure this out and to build a global network, but we think we're onto something, and hopefully
We're gonna collaborate.
We're going to collaborate.
We're gonna do it.
We're going to figure something out.
We're
so.
doing it.
So we'll figure this out.
Yes, we got it. Awesome. Okay, Michelle?
So that as founders in the room and as leaders, I ask that you think about, your subconscious and conscious bias, and when you build blockchain technology, that you think about its impact. So I founded a community called Robotics for Good. We talk about biases all the time, so you guys can kind of check it out. When I think about opportunities for blockchain, I really kind of go ahead of in the future, like 2045, 2050, and how I want the world to look like. So I did, enter into the XPRIZE competition essay, and I wrote about that. I wrote about how the world would look like, in that year at that time. So I imagined, a mesh network, right? So rightmesh.io is doing that, right? Trust, hubtoken.org is doing that. Robots Without Border, right? 70% of women cannot read. 90% of the population do not have health care, right? So Decent is doing health care. So really think about some of these things that will change the world and how you could change that.
Jackie looks like she's gonna cry.
No. I want to read your paper. Is what I want to do. You're such a futurist. Creativity, innovation, getting out the middleman, transparency. So you know what that means? Decentralization. It means we have to actually talk to each other more. Because there's not going to be a middleman anymore. So it's just really about transparency and intimacy. Which means that as humanity, as a species, we have to work more collaboratively in the new paradigm. So that's what blockchain is for me now. Where is it going to go? I'm not sure, but I think it's going to actually be a good thing for us as on this planet as a whole. A whole bunch of reasons, not only just for projects, but just for the fact that we get to not compete anymore. We get to collaborate. So no more competition. It's just a whole new way of doing business. And I think the blockchain is doing that for us. So I think that's a good thing.
So I think the greatest opportunity is to change this number from 1.75% women investing in blockchain to an exponent. I mean, we have a lot of room to change and grow, and we're working on different techniques through our platform on how do you engage these women who have no concept of how to enter ICOs for that matter, how to buy altcoins, or how do we get them tokens, and how do we teach them about crypto. There's a lot of room in that space, and I think that 1.75 is unacceptable with everything that's out there right now in terms of content and how you can learn. So we can do better. We must do better. We've got to engage our sisters out there. And also minorities. I think that's a huge opportunity. So women and minorities, I think that's where I see if we can knock that out, we've got this. Like, we're going to change the world. So we got to start engaging the people that aren't engaged now. So that's pretty much our Blockchain for Good panel. This was like our 30 minutes to cover everything and anything on this topic. So thank you all for listening, and we salute you. Thank you.